Hi, everybody. Good morning, or I guess good afternoon. This week we are talking about gear that we like for mostly stuff you would use for a walk. These are, just our kind of take on things we use. I polled my team, and each of us pulled out a couple things that are our favorites that we really we always use on walks that we like. Um, and gave our pros and cons. And I'll have links to each product or almost all the products. Those will be available on our recommended products page on our website. All right, so let's just take a peek at what we have. Our favorite walking gear. If you have any questions during the while we talk about this, just pop it below the where you're watching the video and it'll come up for me. All right, so favorite walking gear. So these are the categories I'm covering a little bit today. I'll show you some harnesses we like, some leashes, collars, and it turns out that several of us use dog clothing, so some dog jackets or vests as well. All right, 3 harnesses I wanted to review briefly for you guys. The Freedom, the Ruffwear Flagline, and there's a coastal small dog harness that one of our team members likes. For each of these, I'll just give you our pros and cons so you can think about whether they might be appropriate. Also talk with your trainer, see if they might be appropriate for your dog. All right, so this is Team Dog Coco in her Freedom harness. Looking lovely. Some of the pros of this harness is that it has 2 clips. One on the front in the middle of the chest. That's where the leash is attached in this photo. But there's also a clip on the back. So you can use front or back or both clips if you like. And a lot of people prefer to use both clips if they need a little more control. The strap that goes kind of under their armpits, behind their front legs, is soft. So if you've got a shorter haired dog and you've had trouble in the past with chafing, that can help with that. And it's really adjustable. It's pretty uncommon to not be able to fit one of these to a dog. Most dogs we've tried it on, we can get a good fit. Now the cons on this, it can ride up. You can see in this photo, like the strap's pretty close up behind Coco's front leg. And for some dogs, that's no problem. But some dogs, it really kind of seems to cut in a little bit into their into their movement. So that's something to evaluate if you try out this harness. And you have to put it over their head. There's no way to unclip the part, like the loop that goes around the neck. So you do have to be able to get it over your dog's head. And I know some dogs aren't really tolerant of that. Okay, next harness, Ruffwear Flagline. This is a slightly newer one, I think, from Ruffwear. I've tried several of their harnesses. This is my dog Pancake wearing his Flagline. In terms of pros for this harness, it's really thin, like compared to other Ruffwear harnesses. It's not nearly so padded and bulky, which I really like. I think it makes it fit a bit better. It is really secure. It's the only harness so far I found that Pancake here, who's a tripod, he's missing one of his front legs. He can't get out of. He managed to wiggle out of every other harness I had tried previous to this one. And it has this handle on the back, which for Pancake, I use to hoist him over, big logs and stuff when he can't get over himself or pull him out of holes he's fallen into. So it can be handy if you might need to assist your dog or if you just want to hold them close to you for a little bit. In terms of cons, there is some invasive handling involved to get this harness on. It does have to go over their head. You can't unclip that strap that goes around the neck. You just have to get the loop over their head. The straps aren't padded. They're just nylon straps. So if your dog has a lot of trouble with chafing, that's just something to keep an eye on. Although the strap doesn't really end up right behind their front leg. So I haven't had trouble with it yet with chafing, but you never know. And it's really not designed to be a no-pull harness. There is a place you can kind of just see in the front there. at Pancake's chest, there is a loop there that you could attach a leash to in the front, but it's fabric, which makes me a little bit nervous. I always use the back clip for this, which is a nice sturdy metal clip. But it's not one I typically think of to recommend for a pulling problem. All right, and then little dog Gracie, this is our team member Jack's dog. She's a tiny little thing, and they have this Coastal is the brand, small dog harness. And again, the link for this is on our recommended products page. The things that Jack likes about this harness for Gracie is that it's really easy to adjust. It's pretty slim. It's not very bulky, which is good for her because she's really a tiny dog. There are clips both on the front and back, so you have options for where to clip the leash. And you don't have to handle pause. It's not a step in. So you don't have to like lift the dog's leg up to get the harness on, which you do for some, especially small dog harnesses. It does have to go over the head, however, so if you have a dog who doesn't love having something go over their head, that might involve a little more training for you. And as you can see, it's not really padded. They're just simple nylon straps. Now, she's wearing it over a vest, so, you know, that might, so it maybe doesn't matter to her that it's not padded, but if you're looking for something that's really padded, this probably isn't for you. All right, that is it for the harnesses. If you have any harness questions, go ahead and put them in the comments. I'll talk about a few leashes we really like now. The three I'm going to look at are Biothane long lines, leashes that have that traffic handle, that second handle closer to the dog, and then a double-ended leash that all of our team members have. Okay, so I use our Biothane long lines every day. And Palomine is the brand that I like. You can look them up online on Google. They're nice and soft. They're thin. This is showing. I don't necessarily recommend trying to walk 3 dogs at the same time, all on long lines, as you see in this photo. But I've had a lot of practice at it at this point. So if you have experience with long lines, this will be more meaningful to you. I used to always use cotton long lines or lunge lines from like a store that had horse supplies. But what I like about these compared to both cotton long lines and nylon long lines and also even other brands of Biothane long lines is that these are really lightweight. Most any Biothane, it doesn't take up water at all. So if you're hiking or training in a wet area, it's not your leash isn't going to get all soggy. Doesn't seem to really hold odor. These particular ones are really quite soft, which isn't true of all Biothane lines. So this brand is nice to handle. And a huge one for me, because I do let them drag sometimes when I'm doing training, like recall training, or I'm just too lazy to take the leash off, but the dogs want to run a little bit, is they don't pick up every little twig and leaf like cotton long lines do, and they don't snag very often. So even though you would think a dog running through the forest dragging 15 or 20 feet of line would get caught constantly, they very rarely get caught on stuff, which is really nice. Cons is that I think these are actually pretty good for Biothane for grip, but in general cotton leashes are a little easier to grip, I find. And if you want to put knots in your line, a lot of times people like to have knots in their long lines so that if they need to step on them, it'll, the knot will stop at their shoe so that it won't just slide under their shoe. So you could stop the dog's movement by stepping on the leash if you had to in an emergency. You can knot these. It's just a little bit harder to get the knots to get them in there and get them to stick. They doesn't knot as nicely as cotton. Okay, our team member Rachel, who has Coco, her favorite leash is for walks is this cotton one. I think it's cotton with a second handle, traffic handle. It's called. That's that second loop you can see lower on the leash there. And it gives a nice second place to really get a solid grip with your other hand. If you need to get your dog close or keep them close to you, say you're moving through, an area that's highly trafficked and you don't want your dog to wander, or you need them, maybe you have a reactive dog and you need to move them and you want to have a quick way to have a shorter leash. This can work well for that. And Rachel didn't have any complaints about this. She likes this leash a lot. So I have the link to the one that she likes on our recommended products page. All right. And then this is a leash that all of our team members have. The brand we have is Halti. I'm sure there are many companies that make these. And this is just a double-ended leash. It has clips on either end. And this one also has rings, a couple other rings along its length, so that you can clip one of the clips to any of the rings and make a handle to change the length. It's pretty versatile. So some pros with this is if you're using one of those harnesses that has 2 places to clip a leash, like the back and the chest, or if you are using a harness plus a martingale and you only want to use one leash, there's a clip, since there's 2 clips, you have 2 attachments that you can use for this leash. So those of you that have Freedom harnesses, those harnesses also come with a leash kind of like this that has 2 clips. You can clip one end of the leash to the chest of the harness and one to the back. And that can give you a little more control. You'll have a shorter leash, but that kind of is the trade-off. But it can give you a little more control if you need it. One thing I like about this kind of leash is that it's easy to quickly tether a dog to something. You can take this clip on the end, clip it to one of the rings around a pole or whatever, and you've got them tethered. If you're using a regular leash and you want to tether your dog quickly, and I know from experience because I do this sometimes, you end up trying to kind of not tie the handle of your leash around something, and it doesn't always hold. So this is a really quick way to tether. And like I mentioned, because there are these extra rings along the length of this leash, you have a lot of options. Well, you have at least 2 options for leash length. You can make it pretty short or you can make it longer. In terms of cons, if you don't want to use the second leash clip on a harness or something, it can be kind of annoying to have around. Especially if it's near your hand. Like if you have a small handle, you've made a small handle at the end, and sometimes the clip is hitting your hand. That's more of a problem with the Freedom harness leash than it is with this brand, but it can still be a problem. And for this particular leash, this doesn't really have a handle. If you use both clips, you're just holding on to the leash in the middle. So if you want a handle loop, you'd probably want to add something you can buy little leash loops or AKA grab tabs that you could clip on to that middle ring here if you wanted a handle. But as is, it doesn't have a handle. All right. Any leash questions? Go ahead and put them under the video. We're going to talk about some collars we like. I'll show you real quickly Martingale collar and what we like them for. Some tag-free ID collars, GPS collars, and I threw in collar bells in here because I use them daily. All right, Martingale collar, if you're not familiar, this is called also a limited slip collar. You can see in the photo, that colorful part is the main part of the collar that goes around the dog's neck. And then that extra loop is the Martingale part where if the dog pulls, it can tighten that a little bit. Only it's so much as it's limited slip or limited sort of tightening, because it can only tighten so much as that little loop of nylon or fabric there allows. Now, why would you want this? The reason for these usually being used is that dogs can't back out of them, especially if you got a dog with a pretty big neck relative to their head size. If they're fitted properly, a dog who's decided they're going to back out of a collar, they can't, because if they try to back out, it'll tighten a little. And if you have it fitted properly, it won't fit over their head. I like them as a backup to a harness. So I don't usually use a Martingale that often as the only attachment point for a leash. But if you've got a dog who's an escape risk, or really strong and you worry they might actually break a piece of equipment, sometimes we'll advise having one leash attached to a harness, like a no-pull harness, and a second leash as a backup attached to the martingale, just in case the harness or the leash on the harness gives out, which does happen, especially with the big, strong dogs occasionally. And these come in just about every style you can imagine. I have a link to one on our recommended products page. It's a really simple one and has a plastic clip, so you can take it on and off like a regular collar. You don't have to just slip it over the dog's head. I kind of prefer those, just easier to deal with. But if you go onto Etsy, you can find no end of like personalized, pretty colors, patterns, different widths, lots of different options. The cons with martingales are a couple. One is a lot of martingales are made with a chain martingale thing instead of fabric. So the brown loop where the person's fingers are at the top of this picture. So, in a lot of models of martingale collars, that is chain, like the same kind of chain used in a choke chain. And the noise that makes when it moves or when it's tightened scares some dogs. So if you've got a dog who's sensitive to sound, I pretty much always just go for the fabric ones to avoid that problem. And especially if you have one like the one shown in the photo that has to slip over your dog's head, if you have to get one of these off quickly, it can be a pain in the butt. That's why I really prefer the ones with a plastic clip that you can just quickly clip off. You know, if the dog's collar was caught on something or whatever, having a collar that has to come off over their head and and tightens when pulled on, like this one does, can be a recipe for trouble. So that's something to consider if you're thinking about a martingale collar. All right. Zuma here, who's one of Melissa's dogs, is sporting a personalized tag-free collar. You can see her name there, and then it has their phone number embroidered on it. There are many, many, many options for getting this kind of collar. Again, I have the link to this actual one that Zuma is wearing on our recommended products page, but there are others available all over the place, including on Etsy, where you can get all things personalized. A pro of this is, well, obviously, if there are no tags involved, tags can't fall off and they also can't make noise. And if you have a reactive dog, you know that tag noises like tag jingle can be a trigger for a lot of reactive dogs. So that can be helpful. If your dog isn't, this may decrease the number of times or frequency with which your dog is triggering other reactive dogs to bark at them if they're doing so at the noise. Like, especially, you know, if you pass a lot of dogs behind fences and they're reacting to the sound of your dog's tags and that upsets your dog, this might help you out. Cons, well, this isn't really a con of a collar per se, except I just wanted to mention that I don't usually recommend attaching a leash only to a flat collar for most dogs. It's not super secure. They usually have to be fairly snug in order to be really escape proof for a dog. And, you know, if they really lunged on a flat collar like this, they could in theory hurt their necks. And for those of you who kind of keep track of your dog during the day or in the yard by hearing their tags jingle, you wouldn't have that, obviously, if you do away with the tags and have this kind of collar. So that could be a disadvantage if you kind of like having that sound available to know where your dog is at. All right, GPS collars. The kind of if you want a GPS collar, the kind you go for will depend a lot on where you intend to use it. The one I'm most familiar with, is the Garmin Astro, which is the one that Jasper, my dog Jasper here, is wearing in the photo. And we use this for hiking, off-leash hiking in kind of wilderness areas, you know, not sort of away from civilization a bit, which if you were just going to use this in town, if you need a GPS collar for just in town, you probably don't need something this heavy duty. so that you can see the antenna from the collar kind of arcing over his head there. The pros of a GPS collar in general, of course, is that you can keep track of your dog if they're off leash. And this one in particular, the Garmin's, have a pretty good range. The one we have has about a 9-mile range. So even if, God forbid, our dogs got really lost, we would be able to find them as long as they were within about 9 miles. The newer one, and that's the one I have linked on the recommended products page. I don't think they make this exact model anymore that I have. Has actually a little bit smaller range, about 5 miles, but still pretty good. There are some fairly significant cons to this. I still use these every day, but it's a pretty expensive product, several $100s. They're big. The collars are big. And there's also a handheld tracker, the thing you use to tell where your dogs are. That's also pretty big. And it takes batteries that drain, at least for us, every 2 to 3 walks. So we keep rechargeable batteries. I just swap out every few days. But if you forget and you end up out there with a dead handheld, then the collars are useless. You can't use them. I think I have a couple extra pictures. Okay, so here's I don't know what happened to them. Probably some snow fell from a tree or something. But here are both my big dogs. You can see how long the antenna are. So if you had a smaller dog, I'm not sure. I don't think these come in smaller size. I think this is like a one size fits all collar. So, I would never try to put this collar on our smaller dog Pancake. It would be way, way too big. And here's just for scale. That's my hand holding the handheld. And the antenna goes actually quite a ways off of the screen. The new handheld looks like it has a shorter antenna, which is kind of nice. And it looks like the antenna on the collars might also be shorter now. But you can still see it's not tiny. It's pretty good sized. And so that's another thing you have to carry with you if you're out hiking. All right. Last thing is collar bells. This is mostly for those of you who hike. And I just want to mention these because this is something I use year round every day. The pros of this is that other people on the trail can hear us coming. So like if we're approaching people with dogs who are reactive, they can hear us a little bit ahead of time and move if they want to. It lets wildlife know we're coming. So we're much less likely to surprise wildlife. And that's usually something you don't want to do. And if your dogs are off leash and they're kind of roaming a bit, especially in denser vegetation, it gives you a little audible, clue as to where your dog is, lets you kind of keep track of them by the sound. Cons of this is that I've pretty much tuned this out, but it could get annoying they're literally like jingle bells and their dogs are making noise the entire time and it is louder than regular tag noise. I imagine there's no sign from my dogs that I can tell that the noise bothers them, but I imagine it could bother some dogs having that jingling going on. Just like the tag-free collars could help other dogs not respond as negatively to your dog, this jingle bell type thing might cause other dogs to react sooner or more strongly. It's like a supercharged dog tag noise. And this is just my personal observation, which may not be relevant to you, but at least the bells we have that look like the one in the photo, if you're hiking in deep snow and your dogs are running around in deep snow, these get packed with snow and then they don't work. They don't make noise. So you might, if you're going to do a lot of deep snow hiking, snowshoeing, backcountry skiing, that kind of thing, you might want to look into a more open kind of cowbell style bell and see if that works better. All right, finally, the fashion section of today's, not really totally fashion, of today's presentation. We're actually taking a pretty mostly utilitarian approach to dog clothes here. These are the 4 types of things I'll talk about quickly. A couple brands of fleece, a hoodie, which is super cute, and then a jacket that's water resistant. All right. So I decided to review these two brands of dog fleeces together because I have both. This is Gracie, another of our team dogs. She has Gold Paw, and the pros and cons are pretty similar for them. The pros is that they fit both brands, especially if you get for Gooby, if you get the stretch fleece option. They have a really wide range of sizes and can fit tiny dogs up to pretty good sized dogs. They're all machine washable. And they're pretty thin, and so you can fit them under a harness. If you're going to do some colder weather walking or hiking, you can. It doesn't take much adjustment for on the like. You don't have to adjust your harness very much to put it over one of these fleeces. The cons, handling wise, these are just a single piece with two leg holes and one opening for the head, so it has to go over their head. And the dog has to step in, or you have to like put their legs through the holes. And a lot of dogs don't like their legs being handled. So that's something that you'll have to train your dog to do, or figure out some way to do it that is tolerable to your dog. For us, I have Pancake lie on his side like he does for getting his nails done, and then pull his leg through that way. So just a couple of pictures more. This is a Gold Paw, one on Pancake. This is a Gooby underneath. You can see it's underneath his Ruffwear harness. All right. Billy, who is our other Rachel dog, cute little bulldog. Her favorite clothing item for Billy is the Darren and Phillip hoodie. For those of you who aren't familiar, Darren and Phillip are a couple of staffies who have a really cute social media presence, and they also do fundraising for rescues and stuff, so you should definitely check them out. She has a hoodie from them. She really likes it because she's found it difficult to find dog clothes that fit Billy. Billy has a real kind of shorter legs and a really broad chest, like a lot of bully breeds do. And so this fits dogs with broader chests and wider shoulders. It's pretty high quality, and you can purchase matching attire for a lot of the things, a lot of the products through Darren and Phillip. You can match your dog. On the downside, they're fairly expensive. This particular hoodie has a zipper, and if you have a dog with longer hair, a zipper, could be a problem. Hair could get caught in that. All right, and last jacket is I don't know how to say this brand name, but that's the brand name it is. This is Pancake's sort of warmer rain jacket. Things I like about this are that it's reversible, so you get twice as many colors or patterns for one purchase. One side, it's two-sided, so the side you see up in this photo is water resistant. It's kind of like the outside of like a nylon outside of a puffy jacket. And then the inside is a fleece, or not fleece, it's flannel for when it's not raining. You can see here it's raining. He's kind of damp. And it comes apart into, I don't know, at least two pieces. You don't have to put it over the head or have them step in. You can totally sort of take it apart and then wrap it around the neck and around the belly to get it on them. So the handling might be a bit easier depending on your dog. So you can see this isn't actually, well, it's an okay picture. It's a little dark. This is the other side of that same harness or that same jacket. So you see it's a plaid, and that's the flannel side. Downside of this is that it's all Velcro attachments. So if you've got a dog who's sensitive to sounds, the sound of the Velcro when you take the jacket off might scare them. And that might be something you then have to put effort into if you're going to continue to use the jacket, do some training. And I discovered this isn't super tight fitting the same way that those stretch fleece vests are. They're you can kind of see there's space. You can, if you look at Pancake's kind of above his tail there, you can see some space. And I found that when we were hiking in deeper snow, which is a lot of the time up here in the mountains, snow would get like packed in and kind of clump up underneath this jacket, which obviously would defeat the purpose of keeping him warm. So I've stopped using this one in deep snow. It's good for rain. It's good for, a packed snowy trail or just cold weather. But for deeper snow hiking, I do the fleece vest underneath his harness because that keeps stuff off of from sort of packing right next to his skin. All right. So that's our product review for this week. Stuff that our team liked. If you have any questions, if you're watching this as a recording later on, you can still post them under the video and I'll get to them. And just as a reminder, if you're looking for more free resources, check out our blog, our Instagram, YouTube channel, or either our Facebook page or Facebook support group. All right, folks, I hope you have a lovely week. Maybe you'll do a little shopping for your dog. If you find anything you love, let us know. We're always looking for more ways to spend money on our dogs. And we'd like to hear what you tried out, what you liked or what you didn't like. All right, I will see you next week.